Everybody, welcome once more to Omens, episode 18, if I'm counting correctly. I'm your host, Ryan. He, him, his, or AM air pronouns. It's nearing the end of January. It's basically the end of January. We got a week left. And what a year this month has been. Let's just cram 2020 all into 1 month, huh? Apparently. Planets are going crazy. Or, well, interesting. Oh well. At least I got crazy birds to keep me company. Alright, so today we're talking about the Hierophant, the Major Arcana, fifth card of the Major Arcana. Yeah, one of, along with the Emperor, it's the other card that I know a lot of people who have a lot of, trauma with authority and father figures in their lives, if they've got, have a lot of trouble with, because the Hierophant literally represents authority, and I think especially in America, here in America, a lot of our trauma comes with the fact that our main religion is Christianity, and it tends to be very traumatic and authoritarian here, and it's kind of seeped into the entirety of our culture. So Hierophant tends to get a lot of name changes in decks. Often High Priest, the teacher. I've got one here that is renamed Mercy, and actually that kind of fits, and we'll get into that when it comes up. But yeah, it's an interesting card, one that even I had trouble with back when I was first starting tarot, because it is very very strongly Christianized religious iconography, especially from Arthur Waite's depiction and Pamela Smith's depiction. Well, more specifically Arthur Waite's depiction, because he was very set on the Major Arcana. Pamela Smith had more freedom with the Minor Arcana. So, a lot of Christianized religious iconography in it. But its actual meanings and stuff, and how it can be read in a spread and whatnot, are not quite so strict, not quite so narrow. Let's go with that. So, I wanted to address all that, get that out the way, because it's going to sit on my brain, and it was going to come up at some point, and it's a thing that comes up a lot. So, I figured I'd get that out. So, let's dive into the parts of it. So, for our first section, yes, Garth, I know. We are starting with the numerology, of course. So the number 5, the Hierophant is card 5 in the Major Arcana, and we're going to use my Black Cat Tarot for this one. Now, sorry, the lighting's a little weird, because I decided to try a new background, as I'm sure you can see off to my right here with the blanket, and I had to, and then that washed out, so I shut the door, because I'm like, that'd be kind of nice to not have all the outside noises, but now everything's really grainy looking, so. But anyway, we'll work with it. So, in the Black Cat Tarot, the Hierophant here, it doesn't actually say Hierophant, it's just the Roman numerals. All their Major Arcana are just Roman numerals. So we've got a black cat wearing a red robe, like monk's robe. It's a dark red monk's robe. He's holding kind of a, I believe that is, not sure what it is, some sort of gold staff with lines on it that the Hierophant often carries. I don't actually know what that's called. I think it's a double, it's some sort of cross. Forget what it is. There's trees in the background, and the cat here is sitting on a stump and handing out either a slice of fruit or a slice of cheese to a couple of mice that are coming up to him. So, that's the description of this card. So, the number 5, we've gotten into it before, especially, recently did last month, 5 of Wands. So I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm not too worried about the numerology with the Major Arcana. But it is important. So the number 5 is the center of the soul or feeling plane in a Pythagorean birth chart in numerology. It's the center of the soul or feeling plane and the center of the birth chart in general. It represents love and freedom of expression, and I really dig into it in the 5 of Wands. It represents love and freedom of expression, but it is because of the way it's basically a tic-tac-toe is what the birth chart looks like. And so the 5's right smack dab in the middle, so it's the only number with barriers on all sides. So it'd be like, wait, how does freedom represented by if it's boundaries? Well, those boundaries are that freedom is working to get out of those boundaries, of being able to move beyond them. But all freedom starts with some sort of structure. It can't just go. If it doesn't have any sort of structure, then we're just willy-nilly into absolute chaos with no point. I mean, now granted, as technically chaos, I guess, shouldn't have a point, I suppose. Yeah, so that's our 5. So freedom, freedom of expression. It also love. It's the center of the soul or the emotional plane. Yeah, it's the center of things, which the Hierophant is not. Obviously, he's only number 5 out of 22 cards. But so keep that in mind. So we have that one small part of the entirety of the Hierophant, and already right there we can see that does not align with our Christian religion trauma that likes to come off, or what most people would associate the archetype of the Hierophant with. They'd be like, wait, freedom? What? Huh? Love, I'm sure some people, if y'all could see it, because we see it here where the cat is, like, he's handing food to these mice, these supplicants. So this card definitely is enhancing the part of the explanation. What is it called? I'm missing the word. It's exemplifying the part of this card that represents love and giving, love and giving, basically. So it's part of why I was like, yeah, this is gonna go with the number. All right. So next part, the alchemy. And I have my mystical cats here, and in the mystical cats, it's renamed the priest. Can't really quite see it. And we have basically a leopard-spotted cat in an Egyptian temple with a statue of Anubis, or of Bast, or Bastet in the background. He's got one paw on a jeweled orb, and he's got his fancy collar, and behind him a censer with smoke and for offerings. So, definitely a pretty kitty. I really like this one. So in alchemy, the Hierophant is a form of Thoth. Okay, so side note on that. So the Egyptian god, that's name is spelled Thoth. We literally actually have no idea how to pronounce it. Even the hieroglyphs themselves are variable. So however you pronounce it is technically correct. I've heard it pronounced Toth, Thoth, Thoth, Thought. He's one of my patron deities, and he told me to pronounce it Thoth, or was that right? Thoth. Yeah, Thoth. So that's I pronounce it, but for the most part, there's no precise pronunciation. Just side note. So you can pronounce it pretty much however. But the Hierophant is a form of Thoth, he's the Egyptian god of writing, poetry, magic, mysticism, and record keeping. What is the word? I keep losing words today. What the hell? Associated. He was equalized, associated. Either way, the Greeks basically considered him a form of their god Hermes, who was, again, god of communication, writing, and whatnot, but that was only a small part of Hermes. He was more aligned with a trickster god, a psychopomp, and but he also did have plenty of his realm of power was also in magic and mysticism, so that's why they got equated with each other. Bobby, quit stealing my words. Give them back. Alright. So, and the Hierophant in alchemy is basically the animating force in life, as Mercury is to the plant, animal, and mineral realms. So in alchemy we have Mercury, sulfur, and salt are the main three and whatnot. So Mercury is the mind, and then sulfur is the soul, or the will, the power, the fire of being. And so Mercury is that push. So self-realizing powers of self are drawn to it as sulfur to Mercury, drawing the latent energies of consciousness into fruition through the power of motion and activity. So basically, Mercury gets things moving, sulfur sits there and has all this power and potential. All this potential. Mercury comes in and pushes it. So the Hierophant is kind of that Mercury to other sulfur, basically. So the Hierophant is that I have all this knowledge, and I can give you that I can give your potential a push to grow from where you are, type deal. So that's the step of the Fool's Journey in the Hierophant. It's where we actually learn and are taught and start moving all this unconscious stuff we just kind of know because it's part of our DNA, and the collective unconsciousness, or there's the actual science for it. I think it's something to do with quantum. It's probably something to do with quantum physics. Everything's something to do with quantum physics. Or string theory. Might have been that. Either. There's some theory that explains, that kind of gives a bit of an explanation of how things all end up tying together. So we have all that stuff simmering underneath, all that knowledge that isn't actually precise, and we don't quite know it's there, and the Hierophant comes along, been like, I've already gone through that, let me give you that push, that mercurial push to your sulfur, to basically explode your potential into actual form. So that's the alchemy of the priest, I suppose. Alright. I pissed off my birds. I think they're noisier for me than they are for the camera, actually. But I can't hear myself think when they start hitting that monotone. But anyway, that's not my drink. That's a candle. Oh. Anyway, okay, so next section, the astrology. And we have my Tarot of the Old Path for this. And we have here kind of a regular priest, pope, Catholic pope-looking guy with his hat with a crescent moon on it, lying on his back. He's sitting on kind of a stone throne, one hand up and the two fingers up, two fingers down, blessing type deal, and then the other hand's holding a branch of something. I don't know what that's supposed to be. His throne has an elephant head on one side, a bull head on the other, and then right in front of him is a big-ass eagle. And that's some symbolism that I can't think of right at the moment. But the bull and the elephant apparently are pretty common to see in the Hierophant card, because they're both animals of strength and stubbornness and bullheadedness, and I'm jumping ahead of myself. So in astrology, the Hierophant is either is ruled by the zodiac sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign, a receptive sign, yin, receptive or yin. It's kind of dark. So the zodiac cycles through active to receptive, active, passive, active, passive, active, passive. So we've gone from Aries, which is active, to Taurus, which is passive. Or basically, instead of giving, it's receiving type deal. So it's receptive, the yin, the dark, the cold and wet, I believe, is the other part of it. Yeah. So Taurus plays, one way of looking at Taurus is Taurus plays for keeps, especially when it comes to matters of spiritual value. It's a sign of stability and convention, committed to structure and propriety, along with creature comforts and objects of beauty. So, Taurus is, from what I've heard, I know like one Taurus person, Taurus sun sign, and she's very kind of down to earth, comfortable. She's definitely got the solid Taurus build. On top of that, I have a Taurus moon, so I can definitely say creature comforts are a thing, but that kind of adds on to the already Libra. Because double Venus rulership, though technically Jupiter's my ruling sign. Anyway, and then my sister's a Taurus rising, so again we have that solid stability. I have a lot of Taurus people around. No, wait. Because, like I said, that one person I know who's a Taurus, they do... Tauruses are known to be... Their keywords, popular keywords, tend to be stubborn and not wanting to change, not wanting to move. Just stubborn is the keyword most often associated with them. However, they're ruled by Venus, which is the planet of love, beauty, and harmony. And Taurus rules the second house in a natal chart, which is the house of money and possessions. Yes, Tauruses are very earthy, very focused on the material. But it's also the sign that astrologers look for your spiritual value, or the house your astrologers look for to figure out your spiritual values. Tauruses are very connected to the spiritual as well as the earthly, basically. Their glyph, the glyph is basically, it kind of looks like a bull's head, also could be described as like a bull's nose ring, so it's just a little circle with a kind of a crescent moon looking thing on top, which you can kind of see here on his hat. It kind of looks like the bull's horns. Where am I looking for? Alright, so a lot of the keywords: stubborn, immovable, difficult to placate. But on the other side of that, they are also kind of your... Tauruses tend to be your rock of solidarity and comfort in uncertain times. They're determined, loyal, dedicated, enduring. They're comfortable, basically. Taurus likes their comfort, things to not change outside of their control. Because I know another Taurus lady who's just like, I love change. I'm quite comfortable with it. It's like, depends on who you are. But the thing is, how you deal with, how a Taurus deals with change depends on who they are and where their comfort level is at, basically, and how they like the change. And then, the other part about them is Taurus rules the neck and throat area, so in medical astrology, neck and throat. And it is the fixed sign of spring or autumn in the northern and southern hemisphere, respectively. So it's the middle of the season, basically. Its fixed sign is... Well, I can't get my words going. Okay, so in astrology, we start with cardinal signs, which basically begin stuff. Fixed signs are the ones who actually work through the stuff, whereas the cardinal sign would start something but maybe not necessarily finish it. Fixed sign comes along and like, no, we need to actually go all through all these steps and finish the thing. So okay. That's what Taurus is a fixed sign that wants to get things, everything needs to be finished up and laid out, basically. Also, looked it up, so in this card, so we have the bull for Taurus, we have the elephant, which usually symbolizes wisdom and longevity, and then the eagle signifies inspiration, release from bondage, victory, longevity, speed, pride, father, and royalty. So again, a lot of Hierophant, but we have that, basically we have the bull, we've got our stubbornness and our earthiness. And again, with the elephant, we've got more earthiness and wisdom, and then the eagle is freedom. So we got that little bit of sun in with the rest of the earth sign. Okay, so, man, I am not on it today. So, next part is the Kabbalah. Alright, had to take that thing down and open the door. It was getting too stuffy in here. Alright. Okay. On to the Kabbalah. So, again, with the Major Arcana represent paths between the Sephiroth on the Kabbalistic tree. So, the Hierophant is the 16th path 16, wow, between Chokmah and Chesed, and the card I'm using for this is from my Dragon Oracle, and this one's renamed Mercy. So we have a little skinny blue dragon holding a staff, standing in front of an empty, basically a window frame, like from a church, and barren ground, kind of just a semi-starry twilight sky or pre-dawn sky behind him. We've got the alchemical symbols for Venus and Taurus in separate corners, and then of course 5 on either side because it's card 5. And like I said, it's renamed Mercy. Excuse me. Damn. And I believe the reason for that, is because this card, so Chokmah and Chesed are both on on this section of the tree. So the tree comes in 3 pillars. I've talked about this before. And the right-hand pillar, the right-handed pillar of the tree, which is known as the masculine, yang, active principle, basically a masculine principle of the Tree of Life. So that's the right-handed side, the active, the active, action-oriented, active and action are the same thing, pillar, but is also known as the pillar of mercy. So the 16th path that the Hierophant guards is strictly on that pillar specifically. So we have the pillar of mercy, or mercy. Okay. So the 2 Sephiroth, Chokmah, which is also known as wisdom, it's the 2nd Sephiroth. So I've talked about it, I think only a little bit in the 2 of Wands. I'll get into it probably again even more in the next suit when the 2 comes up. And then this is 2, Pillar of Mercy. It's part, and the thing with, so Chokmah is actually in the top realm, the top triangle of the Tree of Life, which is known as the realm of emanation. It's where things emanate. It's the 2nd Sephiroth. And then, sorry, looking at something up. Then the the next Sephiroth for this one is... Oh, that's why receptive is. Wow. I'm trying to do too many things at once. I was looking up to see if I could find an adonym of receptive. Not one that works. So, that's Chakma, Wisdom 2, part of the Realm of Emanation, which is ruled by the page in the court cards. Chasad is known as Mercy, and it's actually the middle of the Pillar of Mercy, so the pillar is named for it. It's the fourth Sephiroth. I've gone over it. I went over it quite a bit in the Four of Wands. I know I at least went over that one. Again, on the Pillar of Mercy. It's also in the second world down, the second triangle of the Tree of Life, which is the world of creation. So we've gone from emanation. So the Hierophant sits in that path between emanation and actual creation. So it's the path moving between creation to emanation or emanation to creation, because with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, you can actually go up and down it, basically. So you're either moving from mercy to wisdom, or you're moving from wisdom to mercy, so you're either going from emanation to create the emanation of a thought and an idea to the creation of actually bringing it into existence, or you're going backwards, like higher up. The thing with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life is, unlike most other esoteric systems, they're not trying to transcend, to slowly become less and more disapparate. They're trying to bring all that disapparateness down to Malkuth, which is the world of... I know this. I forget the name. I forget what it's called. But yeah, basically bringing it down to solidarity type deal. So, again, we see more of the Hierophant beyond the simple keywords we're often told, like right at the beginning of something. The Hierophant is that path between wisdom and mercy. It is named Mercy for a reason. One sec. Alright. Where was I? This is going to be another one of those thoughts pauses. For me, anyway. So, it's the path between mercy and wisdom, so he knows many things. So again, we see another aspect of the Hierophant beyond what the simple keywords we're used to. Oh, it's authority and knowledge and blah blah blah. It's here we have again that rock of solidity, that freedom, that love, mercy. I'm not sure how to explain what I'm trying to explain. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to explain, honestly. Man, I'm not doing well today. Okay. Let's put that on Do Not Disturb for a reason. It's the path moving between and containing both wisdom and mercy on the right-handed pillar of the masculine. Yeah, that's another thing, and why, that's another thing that should be pointed out. So, the Hierophant is ruled by Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Both Taurus and Venus are, okay, quote, feminine, unquote, principles. The Hierophant is always, or almost always, in most decks, kind of represented as a masculine being, and then it's associated with the pillar, with the, quote, masculine pillar of the Tree of Life. So, again, we have that active, this is the masculine presented through the feminine, basically. That's why feminine, masculine, I just realized I had this thing on there. No, wait, that doesn't, I think. No, wait. Yeah, okay. So, that's why feminine and masculine don't really work very well as quantifiers, because there's so many different parts. This is the strong, air quote, masculine type, of person with the teacher, the wisdom, the being, above the authority. However, he, we're going to use he, sits in and embodies the, air quote, feminine. Now I'm using air quotes because I'm like, I listen to this on audio more than I do actually watch the videos, and it's easy enough. So this masculine principle embodies the feminine principle in this case, and exemplifies and teaches it. And that's, I don't know. Probably why we have such an interesting thing of it being mercy and wisdom, as opposed to why that is the pillar of the masculine, as opposed to the pillar of severity, which is basically the feminine pillar. Yeah. The image associated with this is a nail. The Hebrew letter is Vav, which is V and W, and the number associated with it is 6. So, interesting enough, we basically have it's past 16, which equals 7. It's associated with the number 6, and then, of course, it's the number 5. So, 5, 6, and 7. So, we have the middle. It's basically the middle path of all of the entire numerological plane of the thinking, feeling, and physical, or mind, soul, and physical. Mind, soul, and body. It's the full middle of balance, which if we overlaid that over the tree of life would be that middle pillar as opposed to one or the other side. So layers upon layers is what I'm getting at, and I'm not quite at the point where my brain is like trying to actually tie it together. But that's okay, because we're not tying it together yet. We will get to that at the end. So next part, before I lose myself, the Kabbalistic angel associated with it is Haziel. They are a cherubim, so those who, the hierarchy of angels that guards the throne of God, basically. Whereas the thrones worship God, the cherubims guard it. No, cherubims guard the Garden of Eden. And we are not allowed to know about the hierarchies of angels. We should not know anything about the hierarchies of angels. I've been listening to Night Vale. So, Haziel, their name means the merciful God. They're the 9th Kabbalistic angel. You can see here that they've got, they're definitely representative of a cherubim. 6 wings, 4 heads, 1 of a man, an eagle, a sheep, and a lion. And 6 wings, 2 to fly, 2 for their arms. Well, actually, those top wings, I believe, are supposed to cover their eyes. And then the bottom wings covering their feet. But, of course, wings covering their eyes, in this case, doesn't make for very good art. Haziel, their psalm is 25:6, and so Haziel, again, the merciful God. So again, we have mercy coming in, which more and more and more, then you'd be surprised. So the merciful God, they actually, you call upon them to help obtain God's or divine or whatever, obtain mercy, attain God's mercy, obtain friendship and favors of the great. They help secure promises and divine forgiveness. Another thing with the God's mercy and divine forgiveness, that's a Christian concept. Well, an Abrahamic concept in general, because I'm sure it comes up in Islam and Judaism as well. So that's an Abrahamic concept, so not really something I work with, and I don't know a lot of pagans who do, because it's like, what do we need forgiveness for? We're human. It's all part of the human experience. There's some shit that's bad, but so take those as you will. Take them or leave them as you will. I'm gonna leave them. But in general, So what I would use Haziel for if I was to call upon them would be to obtain the friendship and the favors of basically the powerful people. So if you're like you're looking to get in with somebody who's, say, like your boss, like you're trying to like maybe up that friendship a little bit, try to make sure that to secure your position and whatnot, Haziel probably be a pretty good one to call on. Like, hey, can you put in a good word for me with the big guy? Big guy being the boss. They also help to secure promises. So if you've got, so I'd say that if something you need a definite promise on, have them oversee it. Haziel would probably be one of the angels. I'm pretty sure there are other angels that would also work, but this Haziel almost seems with some of their other attributes be a very good one to make sure that promise gets kept. Like, say if it's kind of a contractual promise. If it's an actual contract, there's another angel I've gone over previously that rules over contracts. This one would be more kind of your verbal promise. More of your verbal promise. And, like, if you needed to make sure a secret got kept or something, you'd be like, hey, swear on Haziel or something. Or swear to them or something. Such a thing. So, and with all those attributes, it's no surprise that those born under the influence of Haziel tend to be very sincere of their promises, and will easily pardon those who commit offenses against them. So again, if you accidentally offend some authority higher than you, Haziel can kind of get you, kind of play safe that a little bit. They are the sole guardian for those born from 2:40 to 3 a.m., the physical guardian for those born April 29th to May 3rd, and the moral guardian of those born January 10th, March 28th, June 8th, August 19th, and October 30th. So that's Haziel. So again, we have that mercy and kind of getting in good, but also another aspect we come upon, promises and keeping them. Alright, so this next part is going to be interesting. Wow, okay, I definitely need to keep the door open because I'm suddenly actually running full speed. Wow. So, next part of this is interesting. So, it's the bean, again, from our Spirit of Halloween deck, which I've also found is called the Fantasy World. I actually ran across, I was scrolling through, MakePlayingCards.com, and I ran across it, and I'm like, that's the same card deck I have, just different backs. Found the artist. She's actually pretty cool. She makes quite a few decks. I think it's a Fantasy World Tarot is what she called it. As like, so she licensed Halloween. Spirit Halloween has a license for it. I double checked because I just recently started hearing about plagiarism with tarot cards. I was like, this. She's like, no, it's okay. They have a license. I'm like, okay. But, so, if you want to follow the artist, because she does have a bunch of other decks, and they're all available on MakePlayingCards.com, it's Vera Putrak on Instagram. Vera as in V-E-R-A, and then Putrak, I think it's .Putrak, which is P-U-T-R-A-K, if I'm remembering correctly. She's Russian. But yeah. Anyway, so, the only thing I have to say, I have a guess as to her reasoning for this specific being on here, but at the same time, I have some discussion to put on it. So, being associated with the Hierophant in her card is the Voodoo Warlock. You heard that right, Voodoo Warlock. So we've got kind of a black man with a grass skirt, some dried heads, a sword in a red sheath, and dreads kind of head back in ecstasy, a snake wrapped around his shoulders, a fire in front of him, and there's roosters, a moon, ghosts, skulls, bones, and he's holding a voodoo doll and is about to stab it with a pen. So you kind of get the drift. I'm gonna say that while most of this deck I really enjoy, this is one card that I have some issues with, and let's dive into that. So first off, Warlock. I'm not going to get all into that because I went in depth on the actual Warlock back in episode 3, no, 6. Episode 6, I believe, which is the Magician episode, because that card was the Warlock. So I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm assuming the reason she called it Warlock is to identify it as being male, which Warlock as just being the male version of witch is not accurate at all. Warlock is specific, and again, if you want more on that, go back to the Magician episode. This is definitely this is where you get very stereotypical Halloween with the voodoo priests under the night sky stabbing a voodoo doll. Or a poppet is another name. Well, if it's not in voodoo, it's considered a poppet. It's called a poppet, but this is a voodoo doll. So, interesting things that you should probably know, voodoo dolls are actually more often used for healing. Specifically, they're very, very rarely used for curses, like we see in movies. And when I was, like, pulling this stuff all out and I was getting ready to write, I was like, have I already done the Hierophant? And the reason it confused me was because just this past week or last week, one of my card draws for the Intuitive Tarot Reads card of the day was the Hierophant, this card specifically, and it was in reverse. It was talking about not stealing traditions. Was kind of what I channeled for it. So, I understand using very much a traditional aspect, and the fact that it is a Halloween fantasy world deck, and very much Halloween. I don't know why I should call it fantasy world. It's very much Halloween deck is why you would use voodoo instead of another tradition like, say, Rosicrucianism, because people are going to look at it and go, that's not Halloween. It's not. People in our overculture tend to associate voodoo with this kind of image. Though I suppose this guy's a lot more clean-cut than most popular images of a voodoo practitioner. So, let me first break down a bit about voodoo, or what I know, because a disclaimer, am not part of any of voodoo or conjure practices. If you hadn't noticed by now, I'm very, 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 very white. Extremely white. DNHS says it's all from Western Europe, so I'm coming from that reason. So just FYI, I am no way in any sort of way. I am not in any sort of way a authority on this at all. I just know what I've read, heard from other practitioners, picked up from listening to other people. Sadly, a lot of my sources also tend to be white. I only know 2 black people, one of whom is a hoodoo practitioner, I believe, and the other of whom is a Santeria practitioner. And unfortunately, neither of them actually told me very much about voodoo, so most of what I know comes from research done by other white people. I think Crossroads of Conjure might be written by a person of color, but I can't remember right now. I'm pretty sure it's not, actually. She's Appalachian Granny Magic, so. Disclaimer, I'm not involved in any conjure practice. I'm obviously not black at all, or any sort of person of color. I'm white as a dead corpse. I'm white as my grandmother's dead corpse, which is probably insulting to my grandmother, but I don't care. I'm gonna go with my my paternal grandmother, because I hope she's doing better in the afterlife. Oh, that just got a little too personal. I should take some of that back, probably. Anyway, I'm about as white as this cup. Let's go with that. This mug. which is a Strega mug. But, yeah, so no authority here, just what I have known and researched. More secondhand researched, I should say. So, I'm probably going to get something wrong. I really hope that I don't get most of it wrong, but I know I'm probably going to, because, again, no authority. And I've spent like 3 minutes on that, so. Anyway, break it down. Okay, so, first off, voodoo is a religious practice, which is where it comes in very well with the Hierophant card, because it is a religious tradition and practice that you do need to be initiated into. So that's where I see very much strongly its association with the Hierophant card. Because the Hierophant, as we've learned prior, is all about religious structure, tradition, values, and a hierarchy. Which, I don't know if voodoo has a hierarchy specifically beyond, I guess, a master practitioner, an apprentice, and a layman who only knows some stuff. And there's probably some sort of hierarchy there. But that's where I agree. That's about where I fall short. That's about where it stops being agreement. Because, again, stereotype stuff all over this image. But then again, it is Spirit Halloween deck, so stereotype all over. And it's drawn by a Russian woman. Well, no, she's not Russian. I don't know if she's Russian. She's white. Or at least she looks white. I don't know now. Oops. I should probably know that. I should probably have looked that up. But anyway, so voodoo is a religion. The other thing most of us will hear about is hoodoo. Hoodoo is to voodoo what witchcraft is to Wicca. Basically. My understanding of it. That's basically what it is witchcraft and hoodoo are secular practices that don't require religion or spirituality. They're just magic practices, whereas witchcraft is, like, say, what I do, I'd call witchcraft. I don't call it conjure or hoodoo, because my magic tradition comes more from the Western esoteric occult traditions, more so than hoodoo, which is a practice that combines a lot of voodoo, vodun, I think it's vodun, practices from African diasporic traditions, I believe it's called. Basically, traditions that come from Africa with the slaves that were brought here before. They had to dumb it down, work with what they had, and be very, very, very careful. Otherwise, they were going to get themselves killed or maimed or worse. So that was what's known, what my one friend calls root work. It's where you're working with the land, the roots, the basic stuff. It's like you're not doing all the fancy herbs. You're not doing whatever you haven't really got as much. There's rules and practices like there's anything, but hoodoo is, honestly, from what I know about the two, it's pretty similar to witchcraft. I don't know what specific, I couldn't tell you what the specific difference is, but there is a difference, and I know it's there, and it's, do you know what I'm saying? Witchcraft is when you light your candle, you burn your herbs, you say your incantation, you work with your energy, you raise your power, you probably have a circle going, and that's your basics of witchcraft, and you can make it secular or you can make it spiritual. And then, of course, Wicca is your religious practice that has the specific structure, set of values, traditions, specific deities. So when you come down to your conjure work, which is like your conjure is kind of a larger umbrella term from my understanding that covers voodoo, hoodoo, vodun, African traditions, American African traditions, I believe. African American? I think that's the right way to say it. I think. Appalachian granny magic, root work, and whatnot. So, two different sets of stuff that have a lot of similarities involved. So, hoodoo would be that basically secular to maybe a little bit spiritual witchcraft. It's where You got your dime. I don't know. I don't do any sort of conjure. But basically, hoodoo is that basic unsecular stuff. Voodoo is where you get into the actual religion, set traditions and practices. Vodun, I believe, is an actual African tradition, African religion, which is where a lot of voodoo comes from, or kind of came from a little bit, and just got itself all twisted around because colonialism and mixing of tribes. So, like I said, it definitely ties in with the Hierophant card. I just don't like the fact that she made it very pop culture, stereotypical, that's the word. Very stereotyped, and I mean, like I said, I don't know much of anything about voodoo, but I do know, what I do know is that's a little bit of an insulting image. And then Warlock doesn't even tie with it at all. So, it's like, because Warlock is used contemporarily to mean male witch, which it's not specifically. I mean, witch isn't a gendered term. People just decided it needed to be, and Warlock had older meanings, but yeah, like I said, all that's in the Magician episode. I'm ranting. Alright, let's tie this shit together at some point, huh? Alright, last bit, traditional, well, second to last bit, because I have some interesting puts on this, but second to last bit, the traditional keyword meanings of upright and inversed or reversed. Have my good tarot here, and we have our Hierophant is a feminine figure, just her top half from chest up, basically, with arms raised above her head, wings behind her, a sun, basically looks like pretty much a, no, not a, kind of a altar in front of her. She's holding a crescent moon, a crescent moon line on its back, so that's a consistent symbol. Because I believe that is also, and actually I believe it's supposed to basically represent the bull's horns, and the way it's positioned over the sun, we definitely have our Taurus glyph. It's got a star on top of it. In front of her is an altar, a stone altar, with a candle, a potion bottle, a chalice, and some crystals, and an ink bottle, and feather in it, and feather quill on top of it, and it's actually pretty cool. So the basic traditional meanings, keyword meanings for the Hierophant are teacher, tradition, path between the profane and the sacred, knowledge to be attained, questions which lead to answers, which leads to questions. Now I'll get more to summing it up in a little bit. Inverse, I put, I get this out of the kitchen witches, or the kitchen table guide to tarot. And the way the inverse was basically summed up, I think a lot of us see the Hierophant basically in its inverse, or its shadow side, which is strict, authoritarian, totalitarian, very, it's my way, and I'm only right. The way the kitchen table tarot summed it up, and the only keywords I wrote down were, think Matilda's Agatha Trunchbull, the principal. If you've never seen Matilda, go watch it. Seriously, it's hilarious and it's adorable. I love that movie as a kid. Or read the book. It's actually, I haven't read the book yet. But Principal Trunchbull is, one of her iconic lines is, I'm big and you're small, I'm right and you're wrong. That's the Hierophant in reverse. It's, I'm right because I'm big, because I'm bigger than you, and because I've got the power, and you're just a weak little man, you're below me, so I'm right, and you have to do what I say and how I say it, and you have to follow these structures and traditions and do it right, and only I can say what's right. That is how I believe that most people see the Hierophant as a general rule, and that's not it. That's its shadow side, which does happen. I mean, look at America right now. But The Hierophant is a teacher, a wisdom keeper, the path between, the messenger between the gods and humanity. That bridge in between. If you think about Catholicism, it was very much to connect with God or Jesus or whatever, you had to go see your priest. You had to, maybe if you couldn't do that, petition Mother Mary to talk to her son and, I guess, divine husband, now that I think about it, to talk to them. You had to, this is the Hierophant is the intermediary. This is someone who's done the work, gone up the ladder, spoken to the divinity, and is able to come back and teach to all the people below. It's like, teach and lead people up that bridge. Not everybody is cut out or wants to go basically become their own Hierophant. Not everybody wants to do all that work in between. Sometimes we're just like, I don't know what's going on. Let's go ask a tarot reader. It's like tarot reader is kind of a tarot reader is kind of that bridge between humanity and divinity as well. As you could see the Hierophant as being a tarot reader or a seer of some sort who's hopefully doing their work and actually going and doing stuff. I need to do that. That's just an example that just popped in my head. Your tribal shaman is another one. That the Hierophant is basically like your tribal shaman. It's like someone who's done all the work and learned all the things, and it's there's a disease going around the village, so what's going on? Who have we pissed off? What have we messed up? What do we need to do? Shaman is the one who's going to journey into the spirit realm, find out what is needed, come back and actually tell the people what they need to do, what they need to implement to kind of relieve this disease, relieve this drought, what have you. That's who the Hierophant is, the priest, the person in between. And so that's kind of our traditional put on that. That's the Hierophant is the teacher. This is the structure. This is the levels of learning that you can go through to attain and whatnot. Usually, if it comes up in a reading, it usually means you maybe need to either go to somewhere, someone that is kind of a structured teaching area that you need to learn from, or maybe you need to be that teacher to someone else type deal. Now, what I wanted to bring up as kind of our extra is I have my Vice Versa Tarot here, and I'm pretty sure I brought this up in the High Priestess episode. So I have here our High Priestess card. So we have our basic Rider-Waite-Smith RWS kind of depiction of the black and white pillars, and she's sitting on a throne, half hidden. So we know that our High Priestess represents our intuition, our mysteries, the knowledge we wish to seek, that we wish to obtain. Why I bring this up is because then we have a Hierophant who is that teacher, who has obtained that mysteries. And what I like about the Vice Versa card is, so a common depiction, especially in the RWS specifically, is here at the Hierophant. At his feet are two keys, silver and gold. So these are his keys. These are the keys of knowledge that you have to work to obtain, that these students here in front of him are working to obtain, that they want those keys to the knowledge. Where he got these keys is the High Priestess. This is the that side or the back side of the High Priestess. Those keys are sitting on the pillow behind her throne, the gold and silver keys. So, the mysteries and the knowledge that our High Priestess protects and guards, that we have to work for, are the same keys that we also have to work for in the Hierophant. And the backside of the Hierophant as well, we have on the back of his throne a star, like a pentagram that is definitely some sort of occult symbol, hermetic symbol. I don't know what all on it. It's the tetragrammatron. It's the tetragrammatron. Yeah. And of course, also behind him we have a baby, a naked baby, representing innocence, holding another key. So innocence is the key, or innocence holds the key is a way you could say that. There's an apple, which, if you think about it in Christian traditions, the forbidden fruit of the Garden of Eden is often kind of depicted as an apple, even though we know it wasn't. So, forbidden fruit, but it's sliced in half, it's open, it's ready for the taking. It's right there. And also we have I forget what the actual name is. Hey, birds, calm it down. It's the Venus of, I can't remember what her title is, but it's a very old fertility statue. So all this mystery, which is guarded by this masculine principle, all this mystery that was held by the high priestess, is the basis of these traditions and teachings. So the Hierophant, he knows all the mysteries, so he listens to the intuition, whereas the high priestess is intuition and mystery and stuff you have to intuit and slowly learn. The Hierophant is one who has gone through all that trouble, learned it, and has brought it forth, so you don't have to try to like sit there and write it out. He's the one you go to that it's all laid out in the in the college course program type deal. So yeah, that's where these two come together, and they're both seated on thrones between pillars, and both of them have darkness behind them. They guard mysteries and secrets. They're just two different ways of doing it, whereas she is very energetic, spiritual, look beyond, look inside yourself type deal. He is very much, I've got it all written out. I've got it all put down. This is where the high priestess is your heart and your emotion, your intuition. The Hierophant, or the high priest, is your logic, your reasoning, your brain, bringing it down into solid material, going from high spirit to solid material. He brings this knowledge down into reality type deal, or into this plane, however you want to call it. But that was just something I thought was really cool, and I wonder, almost another thing. So we're talking about in the alchemy how the Hierophant is the mercury to the sulfur, kind of a bit of both. While the high priest in this card, behind her in that side, there are two goblets of fire, basically, one blue and one red, that are mercury and sulfur. Right? Yeah. Blue is mercury, the red is sulfur. So, kind of a call to what the Hierophant has and what he knows. And yeah, oof. Well, I think I've talked enough. We've hit over an hour. The birds have definitely talked plenty. I can barely hear myself because I'm trying to talk over them, which last I heard previously, they aren't that loud. They're just louder to me. I'm going to silence you. But anyway, alright. So now I know to keep the door open from now on. Otherwise, yeah, let's go ahead and call this good. It probably could have been better. Maybe eventually someday I'll redo it. When I know more. That's what I'm considering with these, is I go through the entire deck and then I repeat. Hey, quit biting each other. Yeah, I'm like out of ideas to end this, so like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. Find me on Facebook at Bags and Omens. Email me with any questions at bagsandomens@gmail.com. If you like the show, support me on Patreon. All the links will be below. Yeah, it's Saturday. Next Sunday is going to be the 5th Sunday of January. I'm hoping to do the Tarot 101, like completely redo all that. Put all 3 episodes on at once. Hopefully be a lot better than they were previously. Hopefully sound a lot better at the very least. But yeah, that's all I got. I think that's all the birds got too. So y'all have fun. Hopefully 2021 starts getting a little bit better, but I have, from what I know of how the fluctuations of energy are going, just based on how planets are going and, you know, what the world looks like in general, because, you know, as above, so below. Yeah, as below, so above. We still got a bit more of a shit show to get through, but at least things are looking up a little bit. Hopefully, we'll see. I hope I don't regret saying this, knock on wood. And yes, this is wooden. So is that. I have a lot of wood around. That just sounded wrong. Okay. On that note, we're gonna call this good. So, have a fun rest of your day, week, month, whatever, year, whatever. Hopefully things go slightly better. I don't know. I'm Ryan, signing off.